New Orleans signed C.J. Spiller for something other than sitting on the fucking bench.
31 other passes that should have been intercepted.
So that's why I have David Johnson on my board higher.
If you're doing a live draft, wait till you're drunk to draft this guy. We welcome you to the Fifth Down.
What up, Fifth Downers? You're listening to the Fifth Down Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Johnny Slokes. We have my partner in crime, K-Mill, on today.
Yo, yo, yo.
Yes. We apologize for no waiver wire show. I was feeling like shit. I am still kind of feeling like shit a little bit.
I was busy as all hell too, so it just wasn't in the cards. You know, we have normal jobs like normal people, so we apologize. We'll get it out next time.
Yeah, it's definitely amateur hour yesterday. We're gonna do our Week 7 ranking show today. And then Thursday, we'll jump into our matchups, so we give you a little bit extra time to soak all of that in. Before we jump into everything, just want to let you guys know you can catch our show on iTunes. You can catch it on Spreaker. Let's jump into some news and note. How significant do you think Carson Palmer's injury is that sustained Monday night?
Well, if I am a Cardinals fan, I'm going to be hoping and praying that this isn't serious, because if this is a serious thing, I think this derails the Cardinals' Super Bowl hopes. I think it all rides on Carson Palmer's health. I think the only player not affected by this will be David Johnson. I think that he's just going to tote the rock and not have much worries. He might see some more stacked boxes. But, I mean, I really hope this isn't a serious injury, because this is going to be a big blow to a really good Cardinals team.
Yeah, it doesn't appear like it was anything too serious. It looked like it was just like a cramp, and maybe they're just, taking them out because they're blowing out the Jets. So I wouldn't look too much into it, but I mean, you heard the news about Eddie Lacy. He's expected to miss several weeks with that ankle.
Eddie Lacy. Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually going to ask you about that because we didn't do a waiver wire show. I was actually going to ask you just as a speculative thing. What do you think about Niall Davis? Do you think he's worth an ad in most weeks? Because I'm kind of on the fence on that one. I've seen Niall Davis, and I don't really know if I would necessarily spend a waiver claim on him.
I have had some questions about Niles Davis, and my answer has been pretty consistent. I think this is going to be an anemic run offense that the Packers are going to employ out there. I know they called up someone off the practice squad. I mean, their passing game has been struggling, which isn't going to help the run game any. I wouldn't really look too much into this. I think it's kind of a situation you want to avoid for right now.
Yeah, I was interested on your take because we haven't talked about this topic before. I lean the same way. I don't really like Niall Davis because not only that, you have wide receiver Ty Montgomery, who's supposedly getting some carries out of the backfield this week too. So it's just a mess. And I even heard Randall Cobb might carry out of the backfield as well. So that's kind of crazy. But I would just say avoid the whole situation. It sounds like a running back by committee hell.
You know who they were using in the backfield quite a bit this past week was Ty Montgomery. He actually had like 8 of his catches come out of the backfield, so that could also be a guy they could put back there.
Yeah, I see definitely. I could see him in a Bilal Powell type role. When Fitz is playing well, you know what I mean.
And that's the thing. Like the Packers have never really had that like feedback that can catch out of the backfield. They never really have had that in the past couple of years. So I mean, maybe that's something that they could pick up in the future. Yeah, I think that's definitely an aspect of the. Yeah, it's definitely an aspect they're missing out of that backfield. Randall Cobb was limited today's practice too, but I think that I think he'll be back this week. He gets a good matchup against Chicago.
Yeah, I would play him if he's healthy.
More news about the Packers. Devontae Adams might have got a concussion.
I hate for players to get hurt. Well, he's a shitty football player, but in my opinion, I wouldn't own Devontae Adams even if he was like the last waiver claim on earth.
Once again, Zach Miller limited in Tuesday's practice. He's been kind of limited all year. It doesn't seem like he's going to be a full go, but he should be ready to go by Sunday.
Yeah, I really hope he does, because with Brian Hoyer behind center, I think that he's I love Zach Miller with Brian Hoyer back there. With Jay Cutler, not so much, but I like him with Brian Hoyer.
Vincent Jackson placed on injured reserve. He tore his ACL, effectively ending his season, probably ending his career. I know he's getting up there in age. We didn't do a waiver wire show, but I think Adam Humphries could be a nice speculative ad to put onto your bench. Obviously, he's going to still play second fiddle to Mike Evans, but, he showed earlier this season that he could be a nice little PPR asset.
Well, think about it this way. If Jameis is throwing it 50 times a game, which he has been in most games, somebody else is going to get the ball besides Mike Evans, because Mike Evans is only going to get, between 10 and 20 targets. So that leaves some room for somebody else. So I definitely think this is a good ad.
All right. If we haven't said enough bad news about the Green Bay Packers, Sam Shields is placed on injured reserve.
I saw that too.
He's suffered his fifth career concussion this year, so it's looking bad for Green Bay right now.
Yeah, it's bleak, man. And even Aaron Rodgers has he said today, he said that they're just not all on the same page. He admitted what everybody knew, that they are struggling. So it's going to be interesting to see how they overcome this. But we all know that the Packers like to struggle early in the season and like to get hot later in the season. So we'll see if that happens.
All right, a couple more injury updates. Carlos Hyde, he showed up to practice today wearing an arm sling. He just suffered a shoulder injury in Sunday's game. How concerning are you about this?
Well, I'm not hearing a whole lot of rumblings about anything, so I think that he'll be fine. But we do know that Carlos Hyde, when he has injuries like last year, he had a foot injury, and everybody's like, oh, it's a foot injury, he'll be over it. It ended up costing him his season. So he's a guy that, when he gets injured, he tends to stay injured for quite a while, so definitely keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's certainly concerning because of his injury past, but it is interesting to note that he did re-enter the game after missing just one series. But if he was to go out, maybe Sean Drawn could be a interesting little pickup because he would be the next man up.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He definitely had value last year when he was the lead back there, so I definitely agree.
And my last little piece of news is Dwayne Allen is week to week with an ankle. Next man up would be Doyle, who he's been productive at times this year, and I think that he might be an interesting little tight end streamer if Dwayne Allen can't go.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he'd definitely be worth an ad if Dwayne Allen is forced to miss time, which it looks like that would be the case. You got to think, this is an offense that relies on the passing game, and the running game is like kind of a change of pace thing. So passing is definitely the priority over there, and Doyle's going to get some targets.
All right. Is there any other pieces of news that you want to throw in there?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, let's jump into our Week 7 rankings. We will start at quarterback. I think we both probably have the same number one quarterback. Maybe not. You could make a case for a couple of guys, but my number one is going to be Tom Brady. I can't really argue with what he's been doing these past couple of weeks. He gets to play Pittsburgh on the road. Even last week when he got off to a slow start, he still ended up with over 300 yards. You gotta love the matchup.
Yeah, I definitely do love the matchup, and I have no qualms with Tom Brady this week. I love him, and we were just talking about how hard of a time we had ranking these guys. I had a real hard time with this one, but Matt Ryan went into Seattle last week, and he put up a good game. I think Matt Ryan is for real. I think that Kyle Shanahan and him are finally on the same page, and man, it was paying dividends. He took one of the best defenses in the league, and he ripped him up pretty good, especially that secondary. So my number one this week is Matt Ryan. He's playing San Diego. That's playing without their top corner. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I'm like right there with you. I got Matt Ryan at number 2. He's going up against San Diego. He's been slinging the rock pretty good. You got to really like the matchup. He gets to play at home, which he always plays better at home. He gets to go against San Diego secondary. It's a little bit banged up right now. So you definitely got to like that matchup as well. So we're not too far off on that one.
Definitely. And then my number 2 is obviously Tom Brady. Like I said, I had a real hard time with these two. And you said it, everything that, we love about Tom Brady, he's fucking Tom Brady. That's all I have to say about the guy. So that's my number 2. I'll move on to number 3, though. I had a hard time with this one, too. But I had to say Kirk Cousins. He plays Detroit, and I tried to stream Detroit's defense this week. Can you believe that? Like, they're just fucking horrible. So, no.
Look what Case Keenum did against them.
That's what I'm saying. I streamed them because I was like, oh, they're playing the Rams. Case Keenum. This is going to be a good idea here. No, it's not. So it proved to me that if you're a quarterback and you're facing Detroit's defense, then you are definitely worth a play that way if you're a must-start quarterback. So Kirk Cousins, number 3.
Yeah, sticking with that same game, I have Matthew Stafford at number 3. He's playing at home. He always plays better at home. I know he's had a couple of bad games, but in every game where he didn't play like shit, he's had multiple touchdown games. So I definitely like him in this matchup. Washington's towards the bottom end of the league in pass defense. I think that he's going to exploit them.
Yeah, well, and an interesting thing too, about Matt Stafford is, he's had 2 dreadful games. Like, they've been absolutely fucking dreadful. We've seen the worst of Matthew Stafford, but we've also seen the best. And he's had 4 really good games this season. So he's a guy that, man, when he's bad, but when he's good, man, he is paying dividends to your fantasy team, and that's why he's my number 4 this week. Love the matchup.
He's the only guy that can look like an elite quarterback one week and look like he should be a backup quarterback the next.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So, sometimes you're playing Russian roulette with him. There's even some games where he has a great matchup and he struggles, like against Chicago this year. It was a great matchup that he should have easily exploited and he couldn't do it. So, but we'll move on. My number you're number 4, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, my number 4 is, I didn't really feel great about putting him here, but he has been picking up his play a little bit. I do think that I'm done thinking that he can be an elite quarterback, but maybe it could be a little bit better if he got a line behind him, is Andrew Luck. Doesn't have a great matchup, but he has been picking up his play. He's playing Tennessee on the road, and I think he'll do fine. He looked like he was having a little bit of success last week. He did throw that one interception that was kind of ugly, but other than that, I think he'll be a fine play.
Man, I don't know. I think it has something to do with this just Indianapolis team as a whole, but, man, I am still low on Andrew Luck now. I was so high on him starting the season, but he's looked bad. Anyways, moving right along. My number 5 this week, we're on number 5. My number 5 this week is Brian Hoyer. He's playing a depleted Green Bay secondary, and I really like what I've seen out of him so far. He's developed quite a connection with Meredith, and then, Jeffrey to some extent, and then, of course, if Zach Miller plays, I think that only boosts his value this week. So Brian Hoyer at number 5.
Yeah, you're a little bit higher on him than I am, but I definitely don't disagree with the matchup. He has a decent matchup against Green Bay, who we just said, the same shield is on IR. Their defense is banged up. I could definitely get on board with that one. My number 5 is Phillip Rivers going on the road against Atlanta. I think that's going to be a pretty high-scoring game. I think both quarterbacks are going to do pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely do, and that's actually funny that we mentioned that again, because my number 6 this week is Phillip Rivers. So I am high on Phillip Rivers too. Don't get me wrong, but I think I'm just a tad bit higher on Brian Hoyer. I'm sorry, I had a little brain fart there. Yeah, but yeah, I definitely think that Phillip Rivers will be a decent enough play this week.
Phillip Rivers! All right, my number 6 is Andy Dalton. He's going to stay at home and play Cleveland. We all know how weak that secondary can be. He had a pretty good game last week, actually. I know we both were pretty high on him last week, but I'm even higher on him this week.
Yeah, I'm high on him too. I have him at number 7, so it goes without saying, he's playing Cleveland. I think that any quarterback playing Cleveland is an automatic quarterback 1 that week.
Another guy that I have at number 7 that he's been playing some pretty good ball too is Drew Brees. I know he's not as effective on the road. He does go against a defense that suddenly figured out how to play defense. He's playing on the road against Kansas City. I think he'll have a fine enough day. He shouldn't hurt you too much. If you do have Drew Brees, let's face it, you're starting him,
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. I'm going to go on to my number 8, and that's one that I didn't feel comfortable putting in here, but based on the matchup, I felt like I was obligated to, and that's Blake Bortles. He's been playing a little. He's picked up his play a little bit. He's still throwing a shit ton of picks. But, fantasy-wise, I don't care how the exact, game goes. I'm looking for, touchdowns and yards. And he seems to, and this is a game where I can see Jacksonville playing from behind a lot of the game. So I think that when we all know in garbage time, if Jacksonville's down by a lot, he just loves to sling it around. And I think that Blake Bortles ends up justifying me putting him at number 8.
And I was just having a conversation with my pops today about Blake, and we were talking about obviously how bad he's been in his, not just this year, but pretty much in his career. He probably has some of the worst mechanics in the league. He looks like he makes slow decisions. He has a slow release. He makes absolutely no adjustments at the line whatsoever. It almost looks like he's incapable of reading defenses. I'm actually pretty low on him this week. I don't even have him in my. I thought about not even ranking him. I have him at number 20.
Jesus Christ, wow.
Even in a good matchup, I just don't think he's a very good quarterback, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that too. I think that in real life he's an erratic quarterback, but fantasy-wise, I think he's a guy that gets you points. So I think fantasy-wise, but I totally agree with you, and I think you make a lot of great points on Blake Bortles. But I think fantasy-wise, he's just a guy that plays from behind, and I think that all he does is he looks for the open guy. He doesn't really read a defense so much, but he slings it as far as he can downfield. And 6 times out of 10, Allen Robinson will be there to snatch it.
I know you're not really going to like my number 8. My number 8 is Marcus Mariota, staying at home, playing against the Colts, coming off back-to-back games where he's looked pretty good. He's getting it done on the ground, which is like the dual threat that everyone thought that you'd see this year, and he's finally starting to get it together a little bit. I know he still has probably the worst receiving core in the league, but he's making do with what he got.
Yeah, you know what? I definitely tend to agree with you on this one. Marcus Mariota, he's a guy that looked like a shitload of fuck, to quote you, to start the season, and now he's finally picking it up. He made a lot of nice runs last week, so I definitely can't argue with you here. He is looking a lot better, and you can't argue with the matchup either. So, but I am a lot lower on him than you are.
Yeah, he's not only my stream of the week, but I definitely think he's worth picking up on the waiver wire just for this week if you're trying to stream a quarterback, if yours is on a bye or doesn't really have necessarily a very good matchup. I think that he could be a guy that you could slide right in there, and he'll do just fine for you.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 9 is Derek Carr. He's facing Jacksonville, who this season, really, with all the money they spent and the draft pick and Jalen Ramsey, haven't really played up to snuff, and I think this is an exploitable matchup, and I think that he's going to bounce back, too. He had a rough week at Kansas City last week.
My number 9 is the aforementioned Kirk Cousins. He's playing on the road against Detroit, which, in the past it seems like he wasn't really that good on the road, but this year he's been kind of up and down. I think that he'll do fine against Detroit. Detroit's secondary is fucking terrible. So I think he'll have a pretty good game. I could see him getting something like 260, 270 yards, 3 touchdowns. Very, very well a possibility.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see that. I'm going to go ahead and move on to my number 10, which would be Drew Brees. We already talked about him. I'm not really too wild about this matchup. I feel like, and we all know that Brees doesn't really travel well most times, so or sometimes he does struggle on the road. So that is, and err on the side of caution with it, but this is Drew Brees we're talking about. He absolutely exploded last week, and he killed me on some fantasy teams.
Yeah, I was kind of playing a game with this guy that I'm about to mention. I was trying to see how far down the rankings can I go without putting his name, and my threshold was at number 10 is Aaron Rodgers. I know he has a pretty good matchup, but their whole team's kind of banged up right now. He hasn't really looked great this year. And, Chicago has kind of been outperforming their talent level there on defense these past couple of weeks. So I think that Aaron Rodgers, you should have some look a little bit tempered expectations. Definitely.
And, I have him in my top 15, but I really don't feel like comfortable putting him there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, is he your next guy?
Aaron Rodgers is my number 10, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have him in my top 15. I'm not quite as high on him as you are. My number 11 is Eli Manning. He plays LA. They do have a strong run defense, but their corners are, not the greatest. And Odell Beckham blew up last week. I feel like this is the awakening hashtag. I'm going to hashtag that. And I think that Eli Manning has to be due for, I know that he's been getting a lot of flack for his play, but he's got to be due for an improvement at some point, and I don't want to be wrong on him this week. So I put him at 12. I didn't put him in my top 10, but put him right outside of it. I feel like he has a decent enough week this week.
Well, my number 11 is Derek Carr. He's coming off a down week, and he gets no easy matchup here, actually. He's going against the number 7 pass defense this year. And, I think that he won't be as bad as he was last week, but you definitely got to have a little bit of tempered expectations because he is going against a pretty decent secondary. Jacksonville, I think, is kind of underrated in a lot of people's minds. They're like, well, they kind of suck. They always lose, but their defense isn't really that bad.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, aside from Cyperian, I don't really see, and then, of course, Ramsey, but he's still a rookie. He's still fresh. Other than that, I still think that this is a avoidable matchup for Derek Carr, so that's where I tend to disagree with you, but I do agree with you, that it is the number 7 pass defense in the game right now. But I think that Derek Carr is the guy that can carve it up. He's got too many weapons to not do something.
All right. So who do you have at number 12?
My number 12 is the aforementioned Aaron Rodgers. It sucks. Not only is he depleted on weapons, but he just hasn't looked himself. He hasn't looked as decisive. He missed Randall Cobb wide open twice this weekend. That could have been easy touchdowns for Randall Cobb, and he missed him. And that's not typical Aaron Rodgers. He's usually really good at thread the needle. So very atypical. Hope he gets it together soon.
Yeah, how crazy is it? We look like fools. We picked him as our season MVP for fantasy football. Obviously, he's not returning that kind of value for you. Really disappointing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we aren't the only ones, but yeah, he definitely has burned us this year, and he's kind of hurt our credibility a little bit.
But if you really did listen to us, you probably didn't draft him anyways because we told you don't take quarterbacks that early, and there's a prime example why.
Yes, exactly.
Especially look at Cam Newton. I don't even know if he's in the top 20 in quarterback play right now.
Yeah, he struggled mightily, and I said that. He was one of my Blue Falcons this year. So
the 2 top quarterbacks that came off the board have been struggling this year, That's why we say wait on your quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
All right. My number 12 is aforementioned Brian Hoyer going on the road against Green Bay. He's got 4 straight games over 300 yards. He has not turned the ball over yet. So I definitely think he's going to be the starter. He's been a lot better than Jay Cutler.
Yeah. I mean, I already talked about Brian Hoyer. I don't need to go into it, but yeah, I think it's a great matchup. I'm a little higher on him than you are, and I think that matchup, I think that he's going to light it up this week.
Well, he very well may be a top 5 play. I got him at number 12 though.
Yeah, and I can see why. My number 13, welcome Mr. Tyrod Taylor. You're playing Miami, so therefore I feel like I can start you. He makes it happen with his speed. If he can get down there in some space, he can be very dangerous. And not to mention, I know this is all about the LaShawn McCoy show, and I get that, but I think that Tyrod Taylor ends up being a decent enough play. This is a nice streaming matchup for him.
So I was just about to ask if you think this is a nice streaming matchup. So obviously you do. My number 13 is Russell Wilson going on the road against Arizona. I think what's going to help his value this week is I think he'll have to scramble and get some yards on the ground, and I think that's what's going to help his value a little bit. I don't really know I can't really put a number on how many yards he can get. I'd have to put it right around 200. 210, something like that. But I could definitely see him adding another 50 or 60 on the ground.
Yeah, there was something I couldn't figure out. This game is at Arizona, right? Is that what you're saying too?
Yes.
I just want to make sure. Okay, cool.
Yes, it is.
All right. I couldn't figure it out because I saw somewhere too that it was at Seattle, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. All right, he's actually my number 14 quarterback. So Russell Wilson, Tough matchup, obviously. I think this is going to, depending on Carson Palmer's health, could really sway the tide of this game. But I think that Carson Palmer will be fine for this game. But Russell Wilson's performance, obviously, Arizona has one of the toughest secondaries in the league. And we saw what happened with, I know it was Fitzmagic throwing the ball, but, Brandon Marshall.
No. It's not Fitzmagic no more. I'm sorry to cut you off. His name's not Fitzmagic anymore. There's nothing that he is doing that is magic. His new name on this show is going to be Fitzpatrick.
No, I got a better one. Fitzasslick. Anyway, back to my point, though. The no-fly zone in Arizona completely shut down all receiving options for the Jets. That comes with an asterisk, though, because Fitzasslick was throwing him the ball, and he's been bad. Like, I think it was the missing training camp and everything, but he just, looks bad. The last gunslinger might be done.
Can you believe that people were actually, including us, people were stressing over the Jets quarterback situation, like, oh my God, they have to sign this guy. Let's throw $12 million at him. And then he just said, all right, I'll put this in my furnace and just burn it away.
Yeah, well, no, he gets keys the money. That's the problem. He's burning the Jets. That's the big problem. And honestly, so not trying to get too far off topic, but basically what I'm trying to say is Russell Wilson's a guy that I like this week. There's a tough matchup, obviously, so tempered expectations.
Yeah, my number 14, I kind of wanted to put him higher, but every time I put him higher, he ends up burning me. I know I was a big Eli Manning truther this year. He has come back to bite me in the ass in a couple of leagues. He does get to play L.A., which you've seen what Matthew Stafford did to him. I think that he could do something similar to that, but it just seems like, he's kind of finding issues finding that open man right now. I know he did have a nice little game last week, but most of the yards came off 2 long plays to Odell Beckham,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I already talked about him, so I'm just going to skip right on to my 15, and that's Mr. Alex Smith. Obviously not a high-volume passing offense, but, hey, they're playing New Orleans, so I figure I can rank Alex Smith in my top 15 just because of that matchup alone, because New Orleans, I don't even think has a defense. Do they have a defense? I don't know. Anyways.
They're there. They just choose not to participate sometimes.
I think they're statues or something. They just don't do anything. They don't stop teams from scoring on them. So, yeah, Alex Smith, I think that he's a good enough. I know they don't throw the ball a whole hell of a lot, but I think that the primary beneficiary is going to be Travis Kelce. He's going to have a nice bounce-back week in this game because New Orleans is absolutely horrendous at defending the tight end position. So there's that. I
know Alex Smith he was my stream of the week last week, and he didn't really come through for you. I have him at number 16. Another guy that I have probably a little bit higher than him as a streamer is Joe Flacco going on the road against the Jets, who have a very burnable secondary. I know Carson Palmer didn't really find that deep ball against them, but I could definitely see it with Mike Wallace. It really just depends on have you heard anything about Steve Smith?
I heard that he has a chance to play this week, and that's all I've heard. He missed practice Monday.
Yeah, same here.
I think he missed practice today. I
think there's a chance he can come back, but regardless, I think that he's finding Mike Wallace, and I think that he's a guy that you can find on the sideline. They've been giving up the most passes over 40 yards this year. I could definitely see something like that happening. Other than that, I don't really see any other quarterbacks worth starting this week. We already named our streamers, so.
Yeah, another guy that I think is a nice fill-in, especially for you guys that just lost Ben Roethlisberger to injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out, but from what I heard, the recovery time is going to be short. A nice fill-in guy that's probably unknown in a lot of leagues or in some leagues is Sam Bradford, and I think that he has a nice, matchup. This Philly secondary isn't the greatest, and Sam Bradford, I can't believe I'm saying this, but he's been hot, man. He's been typically getting about 230-something yards and like 2 touchdowns a game. So he's been good. He'll definitely return value if he continues what he's doing.
Definitely not a situation I would really want to get myself into, but if you're in a dire need, he is a guy you could slip in there. You ready to go over to the running back position?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. My number 1 running back this week is LaShawn McCoy. He's going on the road against Miami. I know Miami kind of shut Pittsburgh down. It was a big surprise. Oh, my God. But I don't think anybody's been able to stop McCoy this year. He just keeps running over everybody. I mean, you've seen what they did to the San Francisco's defense, which isn't very good either. He's been getting it done even against good defenses. I think he's going to be the number one running back this week.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to shake things up here, really. I think I'm actually going to probably might get some shit from people. But my number one, and I never thought I would say this ever again, but my number one this week is DeMarco Murray. He's playing Indianapolis. I don't think the matchup gets any better than that. And DeMarco Murray, man, I think he's found his niche in Tennessee. He looks good.
It definitely looks like they're very content on just slamming him the ball at least 20 times a game and saying, oh, well, we're not really worried about you, Derrick Henry. You can come and get in like 5 or 6 carries. But the main guy has been DeMarco Murray. They just seem very content on just feeding him the ball early and often. I definitely can get on board with him being a number 1. I have him at number 2. He gets to go against Indianapolis, which they just don't like to tackle people. So I can definitely see him being number 1.
You know what, man? I think it's bad because I don't know who's worse, New Orleans or Indy. Like, which defense is worse? It's so hard.
It's New Orleans. It's New Orleans.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
Well, at least in my opinion, it is.
I can't tell. The Indy defense let the Texans come back on Monday Night Football, like when they were down by 3 scores, and come back to win.
Well, you know what? Another defense that's up there is San Francisco. I mean, they gave up over 300 yards rushing last week, and they gave up 45 points to the Buffalo Bills. Like, that's bad. That's real bad.
They're a bigger gaping hole than Snooki's vagina.
Oh, dude, that's pretty big.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, moving right along, I'll just hop right into my number 2.
Who's your number 2? You didn't say your number 2.
Yeah, my number 2, and this is actually a lot of deliberation, but I have to agree with you on LaShawn McCoy. Miami is an exploitable thing, and, man, LaShawn McCoy, he just looks good this year, man. I mean, if he's healthy and he stays healthy all year, you know, it's shady, man. That's all I can say.
Could you imagine if you were one of those people that did your draft, like, mid-August, and you got him in the 3rd round? Like, you're really loving life right now.
Oh, man, yeah. He's so returned that value by now.
All right, and I think it's my turn to shake up the rankings a little bit. My number 3 is Devontae Freeman staying at home against San Diego. I really don't like I said, I really didn't like a lot of the matchups this week, but that is definitely one matchup I do like.
I'm going to go a little bit against the grain here. I'm going to say Melvin Gordon at Atlanta. You know, I wouldn't say he's exactly touchdown dependent, but his yards per carry has to come up at some point. And Atlanta's defense, I think they've looked a little better than they are, really. And I think that Melvin Gordon could have a good week against them.
I mean, I think he is a little bit touchdown dependent, but I think he scores a couple of touchdowns in this game. I have him at number 4, so we're really not far off at all. We kind of just flip-flopped probably our 3 and 4s. Who's your number 4?
My number 4 is David Johnson. You know, tough matchup, but man, he just looks so good. I'm sorry. I kind of want to just watch him and just like jerk off like it's a porno. I mean, he's so good. And he actually burned me in a fantasy league this week. And you know, I love you, David Johnson. He's a guy that could come to my house and fuck my mother, and I would still love him. So
you must not love your mother very much.
I love my mother a hell of a lot, which is speaking volumes about David Johnson. I love him. I didn't know him, but I love him. Anyways, so that's my number 4. Who's your number 4?
Yeah, I got David Johnson at number 5. I don't know if his yards per carry is going to be there this week, but he's always in that role to get a touchdown. I mean, he's got complete command of the backfield. I could see him getting a short goal line touchdown this week.
Good shit. All right, well, I'll go right into my number 5 then. I actually have Jordan Howard at number 5. He's going against Green Bay, and this defense, you know, obviously they just got shredded by Ezekiel Elliott, and they were the so-called number 1 run defense. I'm using quotation marks like Dr. Evil on this one. I sure as hell didn't see it. Maybe Zeke's like that good, you know, maybe it's Dallas' offensive line. I'm going to bet the later it was probably the offensive line, but I still like Jordan Howard in this one. I still think that this is a matchup where he could really thrive.
I do agree with you. I do think it was more of Dallas's offensive line that got it done against Green Bay. Anybody still, other than that guy, they haven't let up over 60 yards to a running back this year, other than Ezekiel Elliott. I just don't see Jordan Howard having a high average. I could see him maybe getting a touchdown, but I got him more as a running back 2 this week. My number 6 is Le'Veon Bell. He gets a tough matchup, and he's going to be without Big Ben. So they might lean on him a little bit, but I just don't know if his receptions are going to keep coming out of the backfield with Landry Jones. So that's a reason, obviously, why he's down at number 6 on my list.
Yeah, definitely. And, I have Le'Veon Bell up there, too. I have Le'Veon Bell at number 7. And, he does have a nice tough matchup draw, but, I think he gets it done. I think that he might get leaned on. But, he's kind of a different kind of back. He's a guy that will get you, 50 on the ground, 50 through the air, this and that. But, at the end of the day, he'll get you, 125 all-purpose yards. So, I think that he's still a guy that holds a lot of value.
All right, my number 7 has been a guy that's been pretty steady this year. Is Carlos Hyde. He's playing at home against Tampa Bay. He's just been real steady. He hasn't really had a lot of bad games. I could definitely see him being in a top 10.
Yeah, definitely. I have him as my next as well, so I can definitely agree with you. And the Tampa Bay defense is, they're a good run defense, but this season they've had some matchups where other teams have definitely taken advantage of them. So I could definitely see it, and I do have him one spot lower than you do.
Yeah, we were just talking about it on the last show. It's it doesn't matter what the score is. San Francisco, they're going to give the ball to Carlos Hyde. They're going to hand it off to him even when they're down 50-0.
Yeah, exactly. Chip Kelly offense, right?
My number 8 is Todd Gurley. He gets to go against the Giants defense, which they finally cracked a little bit last week. So I could definitely see him having a decent enough day. I wouldn't say it's going to be anything amazing, but like I said, a lot of these matchups aren't really that good this week. So I got Todd Gurley at number 8.
Yeah, somebody's got to thrive this week, and that's why I have not LaShawn McCoy. I have Todd Gurley as my number 9. So I definitely think that he could definitely get it done. It's just a matter of, and now that I actually like it that Keith Keenum's actually playing the quarterback position well, because it opens things up for Todd Gurley. Now teams have to respect, I explained this to say Kenny Britt and Case Keenum as a threat. So I think that opens stuff up for him. I think Todd Gurley will finally get things going, and finally this could be a game where he could have his explosion too. You never know.
And if you're in one of those slow baby leagues where people aren't fucking paying attention, Kenny Britt can probably be a nice add this week. He's been a guy that's been consistently producing so far this year. He's on pace for 1,300 yards. And finally, the touchdowns came. He had a couple against the Lions, his first 2 of the year. Obviously, I don't think he's going to get 1,300 yards, but he could definitely be a 1,000-yard receiver this year. Just wanted to throw that little piece in there because we were talking about the Rams.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We'll stay on topic, though. My number 10, however, is a guy that finally got his first touchdown. Love Lamar Miller. He looks great, absolutely fantastic. He looks like the only Texans player that actually is worth a shit ton of fuck. So, yeah, Lamar Miller, I think that he has a tough draw this week against Denver. But this is an area where Denver has been exploitable. So I definitely think that Lamar Miller is definitely worthy of top 10 this week.
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel great about putting Lamar Miller at number 9. But, I mean, he's really the only piece of offense that has any chance of having any success against Denver. He finally got it, like we said, got a couple of touchdowns. He had a receiving touchdown as well. So, I mean, maybe that's how they're going to have to use him more. They're going to have to give him some catches and some rushes because, I mean, obviously they're not getting it done with anyone else.
Yeah, side note, I think that he'll have a nice enough game, but I think that Brock Osweiler is going to struggle heavily against the Denver defense, and I think that the clamor is going to continue. I know he bought himself a little time with an overtime win, against Indy, but I think that he has an absolutely horrible performance again, and it starts the Texans fans clamoring like, wow, should we bench this guy? He looks fucking horrible.
Yeah, earlier this week, Elliott actually put on Twitter, he's like, how does the Texans spend $72 million to put a downgrade at quarterback?
Yeah, I would rather have Brian Hoyer. I would feel more comfortable with Brian Hoyer.
I mean, at least the offense was moving with Brian Hoyer, you know what I mean?
Yeah, at least he had a game plan. It was fucking throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins in double, triple coverage, and he'll come down with it. And Brock is just like overthrowing, underthrowing, just. And how do you do that with a guy with such a range like DeAndre Hopkins? It makes no sense to me. Anyways, we'll stay on topic though.
Yeah, my number 10 is Mark Ingram. Another guy I really didn't feel comfortable putting at number 10 just because the volume really hasn't been there. He hasn't really been receiving the ball a whole lot. But, I mean, from a running back standpoint, I think that you have to put him in the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I have him at my number 11, so we're not too far off on him. But once again, this is something that, he isn't getting the volume that he got last year, so that is concerning. He's a guy that I actually, in a lot of leagues, every league that pretty much that I've owned him in, I've dumped him off on somebody. I got what I could for him in a trade if I got a decent enough offer. But yeah, I think he ends up having a decent enough week. I mean, this is a tough draw for him, Kansas City, but I think he is worthy of being in the top 15.
All right. My number 11, I'm going on a limb here on this one, but I'm putting Matt Jones at number 11. He gets to go against that Detroit defense. And I know it paid off last time when I put Ryan Matthews as a running back one, and I think that he can definitely finish right around that area. He's really been starting to pick it up lately. He actually had a really good game last week, too, so I could see that continuing.
Definitely. I did put a nominal ranking here because I don't know if he plays or not. And, I tend to leave these guys off my rankings, but this is a matchup you need to exploit if he does play. Number 12, Doug Martin. He's playing, like we said, San Francisco. They are a gaping hole as deep as and wide as a Snooki's vagina. So I think that you need to play him if he does play.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to put Doug Martin in my top 5, but because we're a bit unsure about the extent of the injury, and he is his first game coming back from injury, I have it at number 12. So we're right there. But I really felt like he should have been in the top 5. He very well could finish in the top 5, but because of that injury, I had him down a little bit on my list. I have him at number 12.
Well, I'm in the exact same spot then. So I'll just jump right into my number 13. And I'm actually going to shake things up here a little bit. Spencer Ware.
No, you didn't shake things up at all.
Okay.
That's who I have at 13.
Okay. Spencer Ware, Jamal Charles is back. He's the quote-unquote lead back, but that was definitely not the case. Spencer Ware just completely has been gashing teams every time that he's been getting the volume, and if he gets the volume again against a horrible New Orleans defense.
Yeah, I know he had a little bit of a rough past couple of weeks before last week after, fumbling it like 3 times in 2 weeks, but they didn't lose faith in him. He out-touched Charles 24-9. And I think even when Charles gets up to full speed, he's going to have a role in that offense. I mean, even when Charles was the quote-unquote, bell cow, he never, got 70% of the carries in a season before. He's always been a guy that they try to limit a little bit because they want to keep him healthy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But, Jamal Charles, as everybody knows, he's a guy that does more with less. He has the NFL record for yards per carry in a career, and I think he's at 5.4 yards per carry for a career average. So, and that's really great. But, yeah. My number 13, I didn't feel comfortable about, but Latavius Murray, and this is also an asterisk by it if he plays. And I won't really go too much into it, but yeah, this is also hurting that Raiders team that he's not in there because he's a big back and he's a bruiser, man. He'll get you those bursts, and he'll also get you those 3-4 yards just up the middle and just pound it.
Yeah, he didn't make my rankings this week. For one, I'm not sure if he's even going to play. And two, I think this is kind of a disappointment because Oakland has such a good offensive line, but they have a committee behind that offensive line. You don't know who's going to lead. I don't know if he's going to be that lead back when he comes back, to be honest.
Yeah, I have those concerns too. I do think that he goes back there. I've read a lot of articles, saying that, hey, he should be the lead back when he goes back because this committee thing just isn't working too well. But, I've been wrong before, and you know what? It burns me. Danny burns me, and I probably won't rank him at all the rest of the season, but we'll see.
Yeah, I got an asterisk next to my number 14. I know he got a little bit banged up last week. I got Christine Michael at number 14. He's got a tough matchup against Arizona, but Arizona sometimes can get gashed on the ground. But I just gotta kind of monitor his situation a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not too far off on him either. I have him at number 15. So, Christine Michael, he's a good bet to get a touchdown every week, apparently, because every week he's got about 2 touchdowns. So, so I think that he's a good bet for at least 1 touchdown this week. Maybe like a 1-yard bunny or something like that. But yeah, he's been good. He's been averaging nearly 4.5 yards a carry. So he's been doing very good for this Seattle offense.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like even if Thomas Rolls does come back later on, like say November, I think he'll keep that starting job. I think that's a pretty good call on your part before the season. You were saying Christine Michael, and I was kind of writing it off, but yeah, it definitely came true for you. Good job.
Yeah, I think that if he stays healthy all year, I think that even when Thomas Rawls is healthy, I think that Thomas Rawls will serve as more of a change of pace. I don't think that Christine Michael will see as much volume, and when I say that, I just mean like a very slight decrease. Like, they're going to get Thomas Rawls in there for maybe 20 snaps a game or something like that. But other than that, though, yeah, I think that was a good call on my part.
All right, my number 15 is a guy that's been cooling off a little bit, but he gets a better matchup this week. He gets to go against Cincinnati, Isaiah Crowell. After cooling down a little bit, I think he can have a pretty good game. Obviously, Cleveland's going to want to lean on him if they do want to beat this team. So look for Isaiah Crowell to have a pretty good game.
I can't disagree with that, but I actually didn't even rank him this week, and it's not of no fault of his own. I was just high on a lot of other people. My number 16 is C.J. Anderson. I know he has struggled in these recent weeks, but he does get a J.J. Watt with Houston defense. So, I think that he ends up having a decent enough week. He's got to get it together or he's going to lose the job. So, and I think he gets it together.
Yeah, I have C.J. Anderson at number 16 as well. You got to think Houston has a really good pass defense so far this year. If Denver's going to want to move the ball, they're going to have to run the ball with C.J., and I think that's going to be the key way how they beat the first-place Houston Texans. Isn't that so weird to say? Because look how bad they played, but they're still in first place.
Well, think about it, man. They play in the worst division in all football, hands down.
I mean, their only 2 losses are to Minnesota and the Patriots, who are combined 10-1 this year.
Yeah, but I do know that, but it's still. I mean, those losses have been very decisive, and you gotta also remember too, the Patriots, they were playing Jacoby Brissett, so I really don't think that this is very impressive by any means.
Well, I'm not saying they're an impressive team at all by any means.
And if I just need to mention this real quick, Jacoby Brissett in that game only threw for 150 yards or less, I remember.
I'm not very comfortable about really any team in that division. I just thought it was funny to point out that they're 4-2.
Yeah. I know, it is ridiculous to think. It seems like they're so much worse than that, and they really are. They're going to get a rude awakening at some point. It's funny that people are still saying, oh, yeah, they might make the Super Bowl. No, you're not going to the fucking Super Bowl.
Not at all.
Not at all. Go away.
My number 17 is Tevin Coleman at home against San Diego. He's kind of looking like he's dependent on these goal line carries, which he very well may get a couple this week. So I think he has a fine enough game. He gets it done in the air as well. So I got him as an RB2 this week.
It's actually funny. You're really high on this Atlanta backfield this week, and rightfully so. I do agree with you. However, I think that I cannot decide week to week if Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman are just hurting each other's value or if they just complement each other. And I think some weeks they do, some weeks they don't. This is one of those weeks where, I think that both of them will cut into each other's workload. I see Devontae Freeman. He's my number 17 this week. Yeah, I could definitely see your justification. I think it's either a week where they've got it or a week they don't. And San Diego's defense, they've been better with Joey Bosa in the lineup, so keep an eye out for that. But I think this is a week that Devontae Freeman could have some success.
You ever notice how like aggressive Bosa is? Like even like I'm talking about like during the game, but also like after the play. Like he needs to be careful of that shit because that's gonna get your team flagged.
Yeah,
this is something I noticed when I was watching San Diego. So.
Yeah, he definitely plays with a lot of passion, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I think he's a bit of a hothead.
Yeah, definitely.
He's kind of showing his colors, like, oh, I'm not signing that contract. Now I'm gonna go fucking hit people late.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm gonna fuck the team over now.
All right, who do you have at number 18?
18, Mr. Frank Gore. He's going up against Tennessee. I know they have a better run defense, and we all know that Frank Gore is getting that over-the-hill age, but, you know, he had over 100 yards in his last game against Houston, so I don't really, you know, foresee him, you know, having quite that success, which is why, you know, he's so low in my rankings.
Old man Gore, man, he's just like an ageless wonder. I'm not quite as high on him as you are, but I got him at number 21. I think he'll have a fine enough game. He's going to be consistently an RB2 this year for me.
Yeah, I'm having trouble, like, you know, when I get to these, it's kind of like, do I really even want to start these guys? My number 20, my number 19
No, I didn't say my number 19. My number 19 is Jordan Howard, but we already talked about him a little bit, so yeah, we can continue on to number 20.
Okay. Yeah, I got Matt Jones. You already talked about him, but he does have a great matchup this week, and he did look nice last week, so, you know, there's that.
I actually think he was the reason why they won for me, to be honest.
Yeah, no, he did. Yeah, he definitely put the game on ice, you know, in the fourth quarter with that nice long run. He definitely had a very, very big factor in that game. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. I need to see more out of him. He's just so inconsistent with me. I don't know where
he
to
has
put
been
him.
a little bit inconsistent. I'll agree with that. My number 20 is Gio Bernard. He's drawn to start the past couple of games. You know, he's still getting the pass down work, and it was actually kind of nice to see him get the red zone work this past week, although he wasn't successful with it. It's definitely promising to see.
Definitely. My number 21, yeah, I'm on 21 now, is Jay Ajayi. He does play Buffalo, and they're, you know, middle of the road, higher end against the run, but Jay Ajayi, man, he flashed his stuff last week against Pittsburgh, and that was a very surprising game.
200 yards.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been one of those Jay Ajayi truthers all year, even when Arian Foster said that, you know, people started getting really low on him, and I was like, man, dude, if Jay Ajayi is available in your leagues, you need to pick him up. I'm not saying that, you know, I mean, Adam Gase is doing this horrible committee by backfield bullshit, but now I finally think that he's definitely earned himself the lion's share of the carries, so, you know, keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I went as far this summer to trade Jay Ajayi away in a dynasty league for a second rounder because I was like, wow, they're signing Arian Foster. They must be pretty low on this guy. I don't want nothing to do with them. But, you know, great call on your part. You stuck by your gut, and it paid off. I mean, especially if you're a guy that already has him on your bench because if you've been listening to us, you know, now you don't really got to worry about scrambling to the waiver wire to pick him up this week, you know?
Yeah, he was a guy that as soon as people started dropping him, you know, maybe people had him as an Arian Foster handcuff or whatever, and people dropped him in leagues, I picked him right up.
All right, yeah, I mean, I'm not too far off basically. I got him at 23. I think he'll have a fine enough game. I mean, yeah, I'd just like to see him continue on. He's been a little bit inconsistent this year, but he gets to go against Buffalo, so we'll see how that goes for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than that, man, these are really just I went a little deeper with it, but they're starting to get like shots in the dark. Like Jerick McKinnon at number 22, Philadelphia. I got
James White at number 21. I think that he, you know, he's been getting the passing down work. He's been out playing Garrett Blunt. He's been getting more of the snap count, and I think that's going to be something that's going to continue this week against Pittsburgh. So.
Yeah. Other than that, that's just really as far as I went. The rest of these guys are not starters, so if you feel like mentioning anybody else, you can go ahead. But I'm pretty much done. I think that any of these guys are going to be like maybe flex guys at best. Yeah,
I mean the rest of them are just guys like Jamal Charles, Terrence West, Jeremy Hill, like some guys that you really don't feel comfortable starting this week. So I'm definitely on board with that.
All right. You want to move on to receivers?
Yeah, who do you got at number 1?
Number one, I think that this is extremely hard to argue, and I think I would love to debate somebody that would try to debate me on this one. But Julio Jones is going against San Diego, and I think that he's in for another huge week. I mean, maybe San Diego does what other teams have tried to do this year and just, like New Orleans, just put all their resources into stopping Julio, and then, that's it. And then their whole team gets fucking gashed. But, Julio, you can't argue with the matchup, and you can't argue with the skill.
I mean, he had a fine enough game against Seattle. I know he did get that touchdown. I got him at number one, too. I think it's pretty unanimous across a lot of people's boards. He's going to be number one on most people's boards. It's really hard to argue going up against San Diego. They just give up a ton of passing yards. I think Matt Ryan's going to have a fire day, so if he's going to have a fire day, you got to expect Julio to be a part of that,
Couldn't agree more. My number two is, and this isn't, I'm sorry, yeah, no, I had it mixed up again. Okay, OBJ is my number two. He blew up last week. Still needs to start looking at getting his emotions in check, but Los Angeles is a team that has a pretty strong defense, but their secondary, leaves something to be desired, and I think that OBJ can continue what he started last week.
Yeah, I like that pick. My number two, though, is A.J. Green. He's going to stay at home against Cleveland. Cleveland gives up a lot of passing yards. Andy Dalton looks like he's in stride right now, and A.J. Green's going to be his usual self against Cleveland. So I got him at number two.
I could definitely get on board with that. My number three, however, even without Big Ben in the lineup, I got to have Antonio Brown at number three. They play New England. New England's corners don't impress me too much, but and the reason I put Antonio Brown here is because I feel like Landry Jones is gonna, he's got to lean on who he knows his playmakers are, and Antonio Brown is definitely a playmaker. So.
Yeah, you should have told him that last year because he definitely did not lean on Antonio Brown when he was playing last year. I'm a little bit lower on Antonio Brown for that reason.
He did on some games. Some games Antonio Brown with Landry Jones blew up, and then other games complete goose egg. So hard to see, but a tough game like New England, I could kind of see this being like don't hate me for this one, but I can kind of see this game being a kind of a close game even without Big Ben. I think that this kind of might be a trap game for New England.
My number three could very well blow up in my face because of the game script, but I got at number three, I have Mike Evans. The reason why I say it could very well blow up in my face is I could definitely see Tampa Bay trying to run against that defense, especially if they get the lead. But I think Mike Evans could still have a pretty good game. I know Jameis Winston's been a little bit erratic lately, so look for them to both get on track this week.
Yeah, good pick. My number four is the aforementioned A.J. Green. I think that you can't argue with that matchup. So, we'll move right along.
My number four was OBJ, so we can just go right along. I think they have a fine enough game against LA. They're a little bit banged up in their secondary, so look for them to have a fine game.
Yeah, my number five is Allen Robinson versus Oakland. The secondary is not the greatest at all, and we all know that Bortles has no problem targeting Allen Robinson early and often, even if he throws a couple picks in the process. So that's my number five.
The issue I have with Allen Robinson is, and it's the reason why I didn't rank him in my top 5. I do have him in my top 10, but I'm a little bit concerned about him. He has 24 catches thus far through the season, and I'm just a little bit concerned about that offense. They seem like a pretty erratic this year. So I got Allen Robinson down at number 9, even in a good matchup. But he could very well get in the top 5 and get everything back in line. So it's a good take.
Well, here's the thing, though. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, they look erratic. Well, they looked erratic last year. The problem was that, Blake was actually, getting a lot luckier than he is this year. This year, a lot of those balls he threw last year are getting picked now. So he's having to tweak his game a little bit.
It just seems like they're not hitting those big plays that they were hitting last year down the field. And that's kind of what's hindering both of their performances right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. I think the team's watched a lot of film on the Jaguars, and they know exactly how to defend them. So I think that has something to do
Everyone's
with it.
surprise team is actually surprising them.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the wrong way.
Yeah. We already mentioned him. I won't go too much into it, but my number 6 is Mike Evans. He's playing San Francisco. So I think if Jameis is on target, I think Mike Evans will be as well.
Yeah, my number 5 is a guy where I don't think his quarterback's going to have a great game because obviously we already talked about Aaron Rodgers, but I do think that Jordy Nelson can still have a good game. I think most of his, I think he's going to be peppered in this game. I mean, their receiving core is a little bit banged up right now, and I think he's going to see a huge chunk of the targets this week.
Yeah, I can definitely get on board with that. I have him a little bit lower than you do, though.
I think he scored a touchdown in every single game too.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he's definitely been Mr. Touchdowns for sure. My next one's kind of a little bit of a shake-up. I got Marvin Jones at number 7 against Washington, which isn't too much of a surprise. You know, this is a Washington team that, you know, I think Josh Norman's overrated. You know, you can hate me if you want to, but you know, this other than Josh Norman, this secondary is pretty not good.
Lackluster.
Lackluster, exactly. There's a good adjective. So yeah, Marvin Jones, number 7.
Yeah, I'm not far off. I got Marvin Jones at number 8, and I got Antonio Brown at number 7. I think Marvin Jones is gonna have that 100-yard game this week. Definitely a touchdown.
Yeah, definitely a touchdown. He's been one of the Mr. Touchdowns as well.
All right. But did you already name your number 8?
Yeah, I did. That was Marvin Jones is my number. Or no. My number 8 is Michael Crabtree, and I'm actually surprised that I'm ranking him above Amari Cooper, but, you know, it's hard to argue. I know this Jacksonville, you know, pass defense is, you know, 7th in the league, like you said, but I think this is a game where Derek Carr gets back on track, and angry Derek Carr is what I like to see. So.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely get on board with Crabtree over Cooper this week. I think that Cooper's going to see a lot of the attention on the defense, and that's going to open up some space for Crabtree down the field. He's been the guy that's been the go-to guy in the red zone. I could definitely see him getting one of those red zone touchdowns. I like that pick. I got Crabtree at number 11, so we're not far off on that one. My number 9 is Allen Robinson. We already talked about him a little bit. I'm a little bit down on him this week. I could still see him having a nice game, especially in comeback mode. Like that's what Jacksonville's specialty is. So look for something like that to happen.
Yeah, definitely. My number 9 is the aforementioned. Oh yeah, 10. You're right. My number 10 is Jordy Nelson. I do agree with you. Aaron Rodgers has been a hair off target, but you know Jordy Nelson's pretty dependable to get a touchdown, and it's fluky to predict again. But yeah, I think that Jordy Nelson's probably going to get a nice funnel of targets, especially if say Randall Cobb surprisingly misses this game. I think that's just going to help Jordy Nelson's case.
Yeah, my number 10 is on pure speculation. Say, Brandon Cook, he gets matched up with Mark Peters and catches him out of position. I could see him going for a long touchdown. He's already got 2 90-yard touchdowns this year. I believe it was a 90-yard touchdown this past week, but I could definitely see him getting another long touchdown. Don't hate me if it doesn't happen, but I could definitely see him being a top 10 receiver this week.
I can definitely see it too. However, I think that matchup's pretty tough, so I'll go ahead and leave it at that. My next guy on this list is a bit surprising. My number 11 is Emmanuel Sanders. I think I look for this Denver offense to get back on track, and Emmanuel Sanders has been one of Simeon's go-to targets, and they're playing a Houston secondary that I'm really not too impressed with.
Yeah, I already told you my number 11 is Michael Crabtree. I don't think I have to get in any further depth with that one. We'll just go over to my number 12 is Jarvis Landry. I think he's going to be a PPR monster in this game against Buffalo. He's really their only receiving option over there, so I can see him getting a good 9 to 12 targets this week.
Yeah, my number 12 is Larry Fitzgerald. Tough matchup, I know, but while Carson Palmer is the starter, Larry Fitzgerald is his favorite target. I think that's unquestioned. So I look for Larry Fitzgerald to have a pretty safe floor this week at number 12.
Do you think that he'll see any of Richard Sherman this week?
Oh yeah, I think definitely. I think that Richard Sherman actually asked Pete Carroll to be put on their top receivers. So I definitely think that at least for part of this game, Larry Fitzgerald will be seeing a lot of Richard Sherman.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if John Brown was to see a little bit of Richard Sherman, but I think he'll spend a bit of time on both receivers. They do have another decent corner on the other side of him, Sheed or Shed or whatever the fuck you say his name. He's looked pretty good so far this year. I think it's going to be a pretty tough draw for Arizona this week.
Yeah, I do too, but, here's the thing, though, man. Richard Sherman did get burned a couple times by Julio last week, and I know that's Julio, but, still.
My number 13, I'm going on a bit of a limb here, is Jeremy Maclin. He gets a nice matchup against the New Orleans Saints. It really all depends on how much volume is that passing offense going to see, and if New Orleans, puts up some points on them, I could see them trying to match them, and then Jeremy Maclin's going to be a part of that,
Yeah, definitely. I kind of shook things up. Well, not so much. Number 13, 'cause this is definitely, you can definitely see this happening. I got Amari Cooper. I think that this is a game where I just really like Oakland. I think this is a game, it just seems to me a game where Jacksonville is going to be getting blown out early, and then they're going to try to come from behind and, get a lot of garbage time points. So I think that obviously Amari Cooper could get a long TD in this game.
All right. My number 14 is going to be a bit of a surprise, and it's only just because of who they're going against, and they did just get a couple of deep bombs over to St. Louis. I got number 14, got Deshaun Jackson. I think he's going to get a long touchdown against Detroit. They've been having a really suspect defense, especially in the secondary. I think he's going to get behind them this week.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and he's actually my number 14 as well. Yeah, Deshaun Jackson, I think that last week was a week with Jordan Reed out that people really anticipated that he, get back on track. I think it's going to be this game. Detroit's defense is, really just streamable against anybody. So,
Deshaun Jackson was one asshole move away from having a touchdown last week. He had a touchdown go right through his hands. Look for him to get back on track against Detroit.
Yeah, and you know what else too? I think it's sort of this pass interference bullshit. They're always, calling pass interference nowadays. So it's really hard. You see these number one receivers get wide open, and then they get interfered with, and then it's good for the offense, and the offense gets to move down the field. But you as a fantasy owner, you're like, fuck, you don't get any points for